Welcome to the College Football Bros, the podcast hosted by a group of three. And now, here are your hosts, Michael, Ryan, and Trey Newman.
Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I am Michael Newman, and I'm joined by the brother who's always aware of a hot mic.
Oh yeah, that's me, Ryan Newman.
And by the other brother, whose youngest brother is a hot mic.
Oh no. Oh no. That's me, Trey Newman.
All right. Thanks, Trey.
Wow.
On today's episode, we're going to preview the AAC, Conference USA, and the Sun Belts. Of course, several teams in those conferences have already played a game, in some cases two, I think, but no conference games have happened yet. Before we get into that, though, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube for video versions of our episodes. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CFB Bros, and check out our sponsor.
That's right. Our sponsor is MyBookie. MyBookie. Winning season returns at MyBookie. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. As you can see, if you're watching the YouTube, you can use our promo code CFBROS. That's all capitals, CFBROS, and you can double your first deposit up to $1,000. At MyBookie, winning season means hitting all your parlays, props, with your feet up, watching your team trounce their rivals. The NFL just got kicked off this week. You can still join. You still got 16 weeks left. College football is getting in gear. You can invest and bet on your intuition. Maybe you've got your own system. Again, you can double your first deposit on mybookie.ag, $1,000 in free play. You can live bet. You can bet championship futures, bet all the games, first half, live games, etc. It's simple. You make your picks. You can win big. You collect your cash. Just again, use the promo code CFBROS, double your first deposit, and your winning season can begin today at MyBookie.
All right, awesome.
I got off to a pretty good start this weekend.
Yeah, we all deposited.
Yeah. College football was really good. Then NFL was like 9-7. But one of those was the gimme from the Kansas City plus 54. So
Oh, yeah.
I was going to go with Houston if it wasn't for that because the line was 10. I was like, ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah,
I would have gone 8-8. But
54 is a lot.
yeah, 54. I was like, okay, I'll give him that. So yeah, I would have gone 8-8 otherwise. But
nice.
Thank you, MyBookie.
And as far as the Big Ten is concerned, speaking of that hot mic comment, as we're recording this, there's been no announcement of anything. So
what the heck is their deal?
I
just
don't know.
Announced it already. Like, what the heck is there? I mean,
we don't know. We don't know what's happening yet. All we know is we overheard Nebraska's president.
The Big Ten deserves all the crap they're getting.
Ryan coming out firing.
Well, I'm tired of it. I kind of backed him for a while, but it's ridiculous. Like, show a little transparency. Have a little initiative. How about some, like, you just tell us what the heck's going on?
Yeah. Hopefully they're working on it, Ryan. I don't know what's going on, but now it's just all speculation, I guess, and hot mics. So that wasn't great.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll cover hopefully in tomorrow's episode. Maybe we'll have some news and we'll see. But as we're recording, like I said, nothing new. So let's focus on the group of five, or I guess the group of three this year.
Yeah.
We got the AAC. So we're going to break all of these conferences into contenders, dark horses, and long shots. So Ryan, let's get started with the first contender in the AAC.
Well, yeah. So the contenders we got. Should I list them all, or should I just go with UCF?
Yeah,
here?
Go for it.
All right. So the contenders list here in the conference, the American, we got UCF, Cincinnati, and Memphis. Those are the three kind of upper echelon group team in that.
Ooh, no SMU there. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't my call. All right.
It was a democracy. We voted, Ryan.
Yeah, true. It was. Fair enough. All right. Although Trey's like France. He just like, oh no, it's okay. I'm not sure. I don't really have an opinion.
That sounds like Switzerland, I think.
Oh yeah, that's more Switzerland. Fair enough. All right. So UCF here. Let's start with UCF. They were probably hit harder than anybody as far as kids sitting out due to COVID. They have like 10 guys 10 kids just to decide to sit out. A couple of them were starters on that defense, one defensive lineman, another starting corner. So big losses there. depth is good, taking a huge hit. Even still, they have a lot of guys returning. Still have a lot of starters back. They have a very good nucleus. The offense will be very, very good. Of course, they got Dylan Gabriel, the freshman from last year. He had a great year. So he'll be a sophomore this year. Should be really good. They do have to replace their big play wideout, Gabriel Davis, who went early to the NFL. That was a big hit, but still really good offense overall. And Josh Heupel knows how to coach him some offense. So not worried about that side of the ball. Defense, that's a little bit of a worrisome group. They're probably going to take a step back, and they lose a lot of guys up front, especially when that one player decided to sit out. Their best corner sitting out. Yeah, so I mean, they're good enough they're going to be right there through the thick of it because their offense is really good and their defense will be okay. But, I think they probably won't be quite as good as they were last year, but they could still win the conference.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously, you touched on the big blow of the depth, the issue that they might run into this year, losing 10 guys to opting out. But you have to like the lefty Dylan Gabriel, especially in his second season with Heupel. You would think he would only build on last year. And, I'll mention a couple names that from the offensive side of the ball to keep your eye on. Trey Nixon and Marlon Williams, they'll be good on the outside, replacing guys like Gabriel Davis. Otis Anderson and Greg McCray are the running backs. I swear they've been there for 10 years.
I know.
Those guys. And then
they got plenty of weapons.
They do. So like you said, Ryan, I echo your sentiments on the offense. And Randy Shannon's defense, I don't think, obviously a couple key personnel losses didn't help, but I think it'll be a strength this year, at least more so than the past. Last year they held teams to 23 points a game. They return a decent amount of production at all three levels. Kevin Turnier on the D line is the anchor. He 13 and a half tackles for loss last year. And if you look at their schedule, they also get to host Cincinnati in late November. So that could help.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the defense is fine. And it was underrated last year. They were actually per SP plus the best defense in the AAC last year. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think people kind of presumed it was Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati has so much coming back that we'll get to them. Their defense will probably be the best, but UCF's I think is definitely, like you say, good enough to win the conference, certainly when paired with that offense. And I think last year, another thing is that UCF, at least by some people, I mean, they're a lot of people's pick to win the conference, but their season last year was underrated because they had 3 losses, but those losses were so close. They were by a combined 7 points. One of them was at Pitt, so nothing to be ashamed of there. And the other ones, they were -3 in turnovers in each of them. So they very easily could have had another undefeated season. So yeah, I'm liking UCF this year. All right, moving on to our next contender here.
Yep, and that's the Cincinnati Bearcats. So Luke Fickell, man, he's got probably his best squad coming back. They've won 11 games, 2 years in a row now. They'll, like you said, Michael, they'll probably undoubtedly have the best defense in the conference, at least heading into the season. They returned 9 starters that the defense last year held teams to just over 20 points a game. They finished 10th in the country with 26 takeaways. The strengths of this D are on the line and the secondary. Javon Hicks and Ahmad Gardner are the main names to remember right now. Offensively, people kind of criticize Desmond Ritter. He did maybe regress a touch last year in his sophomore year through the air, but I think he's going to have a big year. He's poised to. He's a great runner. He finished second in rushing on the team last year. And the other thing going for him is he now has arguably the best offensive line in the conference ahead of him. They do lose Michael Warren, who was a stud at running back, but they bring in the transfer from Alabama, Jerome Ford. They're hoping he can fill in nicely. We'll see. Won't match Warren's productivity, but can't hurt. And then, one thing to remember about Ritter is at the end of the last year, Cincinnati was playing to host the conference title against Memphis. He didn't even play in the game against Memphis, and they were still competitive, barely lost. They played Memphis the next week with a not 100% Ritter, and they almost won that game. So they were inches from winning the conference last year. And, looking at them now, like Nebraska was supposed to play these guys this offseason or this preseason. And I'm kind of glad we didn't after doing some more research on them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the wrong year to play Cincy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you covered the defense well. There's no reason to think they won't be the best. They're loaded. They even get a guy, James Wiggins, back at safety, who I think missed most, if not all, of last year with injury. So they're loaded. And on offense, Desmond Ritter had kind of the sophomore slump last year. So I think that's the biggest question mark from the team is he going to have that bounce back year? And one reason to think that he will is I think the offensive line is going to be better this year. They get a left tackle transfer from Michigan, sat out last year, is now eligible finally, James Hudson. He actually played in the bowl game, I think played really well. So he should be a beast that should help that offensive line. They get another starter back from injury on the O-line. So if that unit is improved, that'll, I think, help Desmond Ritter out.
I don't think the offensive line was already pretty good last year. They already had a great ground game. So I don't see that as a huge difference. I see losses to Michael Warren, who was their best running back as a stud. And I see the sophomore slump from Ritter. But then I also see the loss of Josh DeGora, their tight end, who led the team in receptions and touchdowns. He was a huge piece that they could rely on. That he's gone. He's in the NFL right now. So playing quite a bit, actually. I think those are some big losses. I think the defense will be good. Obviously, the offense isn't going to be bad. I'm not trying to say that. It's just I don't think they'll be really any better than last year, maybe even a touch worse. But still right there, obviously, to win the conference. I mean, it's so close between these three teams. It's just, you could flip a coin, really, in my mind. But I just, I guess I'm a little lower on them.
Yeah. A three-sided coin.
Yeah, three-sided coin. You got it. That's right. Good point.
Okay. Well, let's get to that third team then in this group of three, at least according to me and Trey. And that is Memphis. They're our third contender. Don't worry, we'll get to SMU. But they won the conference last year, like Trey mentioned, and ended up losing in a shootout in the Cotton Bowl to Penn State. So that was a good showing. Bad news is they lost Mike Norvell and a bunch of the staff to Florida State. Ryan Silverfield is going to take over. He was the offensive line coach last year. And then they also lost their star running back, Kenneth Gainwell, announced he's sitting out the season. So he was such a huge part of their offense. There's some big losses. The good news is they also have a lot of returning production. Brady White, arguably the best quarterback in the conference, at least up there with Shane Bichelle and Dylan Gabriel. Devontae Coxey, arguably the best receiver. Sean Dykes at tight end is expected to be very good, had a very good game 130 yards receiving. The running back by committee approach, I think should be fine. Obviously, it's hard to replace Gainwell, but they seem to churn out good running backs. Defensively, they switched to the 3-4 under Mike McIntyre. I'm always wary of any scheme shifts in this offseason with the shortened offseason, but they should be decent. They get 7 starters back, and McIntyre's a good coach. And like I mentioned, they're already 1-0, so they already played a game. They beat a good Arkansas State team 37-24, which has only looked better since they beat them because Arkansas State now beat K-State. So yeah, off to a good start.
Yeah, I was impressed with their week 1 performance. I was a little weary of them going up against a good Arkansas State team. Their defense, that's the thing. Obviously, I was questioning going into this year, but 24 points. They made some good big plays against Arkansas State, so that was like, okay, that's encouraging. And like you said, McIntyre, I mean, his end of tenure didn't work out as Colorado head coach, but he's had some impressive stops as a defensive coordinator. So I think he's going to help out that defense, and the offense we know is going to be good. So many playmakers. So, and even though the defense I thought 7 starters. You say? I didn't even think it was that much. I thought it was like 6 or something, or maybe 5. But
it varies depending on
even better. Yeah, it varies. But I do know that they have upperclassmen, right? Their seniors are all on the defensive line. So when you have an experienced group, an elder group on the defense, it tends to work out a lot better. So yeah, I like Memphis this year.
Yeah, and I echo your guys' thoughts on them. The defense, I'll just add the fact that they don't get a lot of credit, and even last year they took a step forward. Last year they were better than what people you would naturally think. They at least improved, and then this year I think they could improve a little bit more as well. They got 5 of the top 6 tacklers returning, but other than that, I don't see any reason why Memphis won't be contending down the stretch as we head to the end of the year.
Okay, let's get to this. We've been teasing it, and we've got SMU at the top of the dark horses, then Houston, Tulane, and Temple. But let's have the conversation, Ryan, about SMU.
It's just not fair to group SMU with Houston, Tulane, and Temple. They are much right more with the other teams.
I think they're kind of, if we could create a new tier, I would put them in between. But make your case why they should.
Why they return a good amount of production from last year. They were a 10-win team. Their 2 regular season losses that they had last year were by 1 score at Memphis and 1 score at Navy, both really good teams last year. So they were right there with them. 1 score losses. They're obviously Shane Bayshall comes back. He's a huge piece, great quarterback. And then the other thing is Reggie Roberson, their wideout. He got hurt in the 8th game last year. Remember, they started 8-0. And then when he goes out, okay, their offense is not quite as good. So then they lost a couple of games. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure why, they have 4 returning offensive linemen. Their offense is still going to be really good. There was a little bit of somewhat shaky. It wasn't, they should put points on the board in their first game. They had a close one at Texas State. Offense moved pretty well. Shane Bayshall threw a couple uncharacteristic picks. I'm not really worried about that. They'll get it going. The defense is obviously the main concern for SMU. It was bad last year. They do lose some key pieces, but they also bring in some solid transfers, and they do get the return of their leading tackler from a couple years ago, Richard Moore. He only played like 1 or 2 games last year, so that's a big piece coming back. Overall, I just don't think the defense is going to be all that much different. Like, it'll be pretty close to what it was.
Yeah, which I think, I don't know. I just think SMU is a step below this top 3.
Bro,
I think when you look at
right there last year, right there, they had 1 score losses at Navy and
that's true.
Memphis.
All right, let me make my case.
They would have been undefeated if that. It's like right there. What's the point? Well, how do you? It's not like they lose. Their star quarterback backs, great receiver. What offensive line? What am I missing from you guys?
All right, so last year, I will say, I think they perception of them was maybe a little bit higher than the actual strength of the team. So last year, their schedule worked out really well, avoiding UCF and Cincinnati. I think if they had a more balanced schedule, record wouldn't have been quite as good. They were 5-2 in 1-score games. So that's something that tends to even out. And just, I think the main thing that I was looking at, and probably Trey too, is just their rating in the advanced metrics. Sagarin and SP Plus are much lower on them than they are the 3 contenders. And that was last year. They were much lower, and they lose more production coming into this year. It's not as if they lose a ton, but they lose more than all those 3 teams ahead of them. So, I get like your gut reactions is SMU should be in that contenders list, but those are the reasons I just thought they were a step below.
I was just also surprised that because Ryan, I had your kind of similar thoughts. If right off the cuff, if you asked me, I'd be like, yeah. But then I started to look at kind of what Michael said, the metrics, and then I looked at the odds, and they were right on par. The preseason conference title odds, they were right on par with Houston and definitely a notch below the top 3 we had, which surprised me right off the bat. And then it started to make me think. But I mean, let's just put it this way: like, it wouldn't shock me if they ended up being in the conference title game. But
no,
they're just a hair below those guys, in my opinion, right now.
And yeah, so I will say what they do have going for them is they avoid UCF and they get the other 2 contenders at home. So that might kind of close the gap too. So maybe, I don't know. There's an argument. You made a good case, Ryan. Maybe we're wrong. We'll see. All right. Who's the next dark horse?
Now we've got Houston, the Cougs. And we really finally get to see how Dana Holgerson's radical redshirt experiment pans out. Remember, if you guys don't remember, he redshirted a lot of the key players after 4 games last year and brought in some transfers as well. Obviously, losing D'Eriq King to transfer to Miami is a big blow, but there's still a lot of firepower that returns. They're one of the most talented teams in the conference. And I actually don't mind at quarterback. Clayton Tune, like, he showed some flashes last year. Like, can be productive any quarterback could really be productive in a Holgerson offense. And now, after having kind of a full year of being the guy, he's not going to turn into D'Eriq King. I'm not saying that, but he can at least be productive, especially with the skill talent that they have.
Yeah, and they put him in a tough position last year with everybody redshirting.
Exactly, to throw him to the Wolves. But they return running backs Kyle Porter, Mulba Carr, their big play receiver Marquez Stevenson. The challenge with them, and it's kind of common theme for Houston, is their weak defense. I think it's going to kind of hinder them from potentially sneaking into the AAC title. They returned most of the production on that side of the ball, but that's not saying much because they were second to last in the conference in total defense, gave up over 450 yards a game. Overall, I think Houston is going to be the most improved team in the conference, but I'm just not ready to say that they're going to contend or win it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I am high on them, I think, to what a lot of people are, just because you say those returning production numbers. I think they were, they're top 5 in the country in returning production, but it's not just that. It's the guys returning that weren't a part of that production because they redshirted, or they so many Power 5 transfers, especially on that defense, sat out last year, not as redshirting necessarily, just because they were transfers. So there's a lot of new players coming into the fold. And you saw, aren't they like a 6.5 point dog at Baylor this weekend?
I didn't even catch that.
I think that's right. That shows you how much the betting market is valuing them on the road against Baylor. Only 6.5. It's not a lot of points.
True. By the way, I was on mute last time when I think I was a little silent on that last one after you say, "Oh, we'll find out about SMU," and I said something, but it was on mute, so you guys.
What did you say?
I said, I don't know, something.
Oh, well, thanks for bringing that up.
Just saying, in case there's an awkward pause where it's like, why didn't Ryan say anything there?
No, there wasn't an awkward pause, Ryan, but this is awkward right now.
Yeah. No, Ryan, you got your point across on SMU. You're good. I
didn't say anything crazy. I was just like, yeah, no, we'll see. Something like that. But
okay. Let's see here. Do I have anything else to add on Houston? The schedule. Their record might not be that great.
We're supposed to do one person here with these, and Michael's like, this was supposed to be really just Trey covering Houston here.
Well, I have a lot to say, Ryan.
The AAC is a good conference. He can keep.
I know we're not going to go in depth like this on every team, but some of the top teams, we can throw your thoughts in. But they play BYU and, as we mentioned, at Baylor, so that's kind of rough in the non-conference there. All right, moving on to Tulane. Ryan, am I allowed to talk about Tulane?
Keep it under 5 minutes, please.
Oh, I'll try. So Tulane is the next dark horse, led by head coach Willie Fritz. Just got a contract extension after making 2 straight bowl games. They struggled a little bit against South Alabama, but ended up coming back to win by 3. So a win's a win. I think the defense should be okay. The front 7 is pretty good, especially if Patrick Johnson, their NFL prospect edge rusher, can have a bounce back season, which it looks like he will because he had 2 sacks in that first game against South Alabama. Secondary is the question mark on that side of the ball, though. On offense, good group of running backs and a mobile quarterback. The big question is the passing game. They lose their top 2 receivers, and it just kind of remains to be seen if the new quarterback, Keon Howard, can be as, I don't want to say as good as Justin McMillan was through the air last year. I'll say as average as McMillan was. Because game 1, Howard was under 50% completions. So unless he's a lot better than he looked, I don't see Tulane in the conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for Tulane.
I like Willie Fritz. All right. Last one here. We got the Temple Owls. So, we're supposed to maybe try and be a positive here on them. Try to think, hey, how could they're a dark horse? They could maybe make the AAC title game. That's tough here for me with Temple. They were solid last year. They had 8 wins. They do have a decent amount coming back on offense, but their offense sucked. So, not exactly. Anthony Russo, average QB. I think we kind of, he's not very good. He's kind of like Kenny Pickett to me. The Ramon Davis, I'll give that. He's a good running back. He had some good moments last year. And they do have Jaden Blue back, 1,000-yard receiver. So there's some solid pieces, no doubt. Their offense should be a little bit better. But the defense is just, that was the strength of the team last year. It got hit hard. The biggest loss, of course, is Quincy Roche, who transferred the NFL prospect, AAC Defensive Player of the Year, to Miami. I mean, that's huge for Temple. They just have 4 starters overall coming back. Secondary should actually be the strength, but up front is just where they get the massive losses. So their defense should be probably significantly worse. Offense was not going to be able to pick up the pace. There's too many other good teams in this division. Like Tulane, I like Tulane. Houston, I'm with you guys. I think they'll be much improved. I just think Temple's going the wrong way, so I don't see them really competing for the title.
Mm-hmm. And also Temple's had issues getting practices in because of the local health guidelines. Their first game isn't even till October 10th, so they've had to delay things quite a bit.
Yeah, it's amazing. Right. The AAC is as deep as it's ever been. Like, it's a legit conference this year.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and no divisions, of course. Just
what happened to Navy though? We'll get to that. But
yeah,
they're supposed to be good, and
I know.
I mean, they're usually solid, but
they won 11 games last year, right?
I know they lost a lot, but in Malcolm Perry, but it's Navy. You think they're?
We'll see. They didn't get to tackle in the offseason. We'll touch on them.
Yeah.
They didn't in the first game.
Remember the long shots?
Yeah, so long shots. First one we're going to start out with. We've got, as you can see here, Tulsa, followed by Navy, USF.
Were they at long shot before game 1? Navy?
Tulsa?
Navy. No, Navy.
Oh, Navy definitely was not a long shot before
they would have been one the dark horse candidate.
Yeah.
But to start out with Tulsa here, Philip Montgomery, he needs to have a good season to kind of avoid getting on a warm seat next year. Once again, though, they should have a productive offense. Zach Smith threw for over 3,000 yards. Shamari Brooks had over 1,000 on the ground. The offense will put up points and keep them in some games. The challenge will be the defense, which tends to be fairly redundant at Tulsa. They only return 4 starters, and I'm not really expecting to see a ton of strengths there. They open at Oklahoma State this upcoming weekend. Tough game, but we'll be able to see if some of that offensive firepower, see what it can do.
Okay, moving on to Navy, which we've already kind of broken down there, our second long shot here. And like we said, definitely would have been a dark horse, no doubt about it. Before the season, only lost 2 games last year at Memphis and at Notre Dame, but they lost 55-3 in that very public Monday night game, right, against BYU. So, and Trey, you mentioned the lack of full contact and hitting in preseason practice. We didn't realize that before the game, but we found out during the game, and in more ways than one, because they just looked terrible on both sides of the ball. So that drops them to a long shot. And just, kind of realizing the big loss of Malcolm Perry at quarterback, had 2,000 rushing yards last year. His replacement against BYU, Dalen Morris, had 7 carries for 2 yards. Yeah. And the backup, Perry Olson, just announced he's entering the transfer portal. So that's on top of the fact that in the offseason, they had a couple transfers on defense, which is not common at Navy. So suddenly looking like a down year. Good news, I'll spin it, is that they do still return a lot of skill talent on offense other than quarterback. And on defense, they've got 6 starters back, including Diego Fagot, one of the best linebackers in the conference. So there's no way they're as bad as they looked.
I agree.
BYU.
I agree.
There's no way. Like, you don't just go from 11-2 to garbage, especially at Navy, where they're almost never bad. I know they had one bad year a couple years ago, but they've got to be somewhere in between.
I totally agree. I think that like BYU's good too. Both their offensive and defensive line are good, and then the lack of tackling. Like, I think they're gonna show much better than they did week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Hard not to.
True. Yeah.
True.
All right, number 3, South Florida. New coach Jeff Scott has his work cut out for him this year. The offense was really bad last year. They really just don't have much talent there. Skill talent's pretty low. The line was horrible. Their QB this year should probably be the North Carolina transfer, actually, Cade Fortin. He's taken over for Jordan McLeod, who's still there, but just seems like Fortin is the...
I mean, yeah, Jordan McLeod he started in their first game against, was it the Citadel that they beat? Mm-hmm. But that was, well, I think because Cade Fortin he wasn't available. They didn't say why he wasn't, so I don't know if it was a quarantine thing or what, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with the quarterback position.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like a 3 or 4 man race, apparently.
Yeah, just means they don't really have anybody.
Maybe.
And then you go to the defense. The defense was horrible last year too. Really, against the run, they were god awful. Just not much return in there. I don't know. Scott just needs time to build. I mean, he is so deprived of talent there, and the culture was obviously going in the wrong direction. So, I mean, he could get it turned around. I think. I don't know. You know, who knows about Jeff Scott? He's obviously had success in previous stints, but you know, becoming a head coach different. But there's tools. UCF has the tools. Got talent there, and it's worked before. So
USF. Oh boy.
USF, right?
Dang, I said see. There's tools there too.
South Florida.
Yeah, you just decided to suddenly talk about UCF.
Yeah, man, come on. I'm with USF. USF has no chance.
All right. Next team there, we got the Pirates of East Carolina. Their defense is suspect. They gave up over 7 yards per play in conference last season, but the clear strength of this team is the offense and quarterback Holton Ahlers. Remember, he could have gone to Alabama, but ended up at ECU. Last year, he threw for over 3,300 yards, 21 touchdowns as a sophomore, and they return almost all of their key skill position players and talent. They're just going to have to win some shootouts this year, but they're a fun team to watch on offense. I'll say that.
Yeah, Holton Ahlers, great dual threat quarterback. So hopefully they won't be as the last place team like we have them here, but we'll see. Okay, let's get to our AAC championship picks. So Ryan, who are you taking?
Yeah, I am taking Central Florida versus Memphis, and I am going to go with Memphis. I'll say they go back to back. Brady White and DeMonte Coxey, great offense. Defense will be better. I think they can do it again.
Okay. I am going to take UCF over Cincinnati. Like you said earlier, Ryan, there's just not much separating these top three teams. I just think UCF is maybe a slightly more complete team. With Cincinnati, you got the question marks of the explosiveness of the offense. Their defense allowed a lot of big plays last year. So just going with the more solid team on both sides. And they're going to be my pick to win the or to get that New Year's 6 slot. So I'm going to lock them in as my New Year's 6 slot.
Oh, yeah. Memphis is going to be mine, of course. Whoever wins the AAC is like,
all right, you're locking
95% chance they're going to be the team.
Okay.
Whoa. Yeah. We'll get to that later. But yeah, it was splitting hairs. And I ended up going with Cincinnati beating UCF in the title. I just think that Ritter's going to bounce back a little bit. He'll be a little bit more productive this year, and I trust their defense. It's probably the best in the conference, and I think I might have actually gone with UCF, but the 10 opt-outs, that's just a little bit more depth that they don't have that might hinder them late in the season.
Yep.
So that was really when I was talking about these three teams splitting hairs, that kind of ended up being one of my big factors. So that's why I took Cincinnati in this case.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I'm going to actually make them my whatever.
New Year's
6 lock. Yeah.
Lock that in. All right.
Really confident. Whatever.
It's funny. We got 3 winners though. We had all the
Each one a different way.
Works out.
Close it is.
Probably
One
the only
thing I'll
conference
say,
we'd do that, huh?
Yeah. One thing I'll say about Cincy is I almost picked them because of the reason you said with UCF. The reason I kind of went away from them is they do have a tougher schedule, so there maybe makes it more difficult for them to actually get to the championship. They draw the 3 other best teams in the conference, and they play 2 of them on the road. So that's just, I guess, a tick against them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to a different conference here. We've got Conference USA, and we'll start in the West Division. So, Trey, get us started with the contenders in the West.
Yeah, well, to start out, we got the UAB, the Blazers. We've actually now seen them in a couple games. They had a real sloppy win to open up the season against Central Arkansas. UAB allowed them to stay in the game, and then most recently last week they lost to Miami. No real harm in that. But the problem for UAB is we found out today that they lost their quarterback. Tyler Johnston is now out indefinitely with a non-throwing shoulder injury. So they're going to have to rely on freshman Bryson Lucero. if there is a silver lining to this, last year, Johnston, he struggled a lot with turnovers. Like I think he threw 15 picks or something, and he battled injuries. So this isn't terribly new for them. But the thing is and UAB was still relevant with all that going on last year. And the other point is Lucero gets to hand it off to one of the best running backs in the conference, Spencer Brown. They have 5 starters up front. That can only help him. Bill Clark, he's done wonders there, obviously, at UAB, and particularly with their defense. They should have another good defense, just like they've had the last few years. First team all-conference pick linebacker Christopher Mull is a tackling machine. And, even with the loss at the quarterback and then their ugly first couple games, if you will, they still deserve to be the leader of this West Division, in my opinion.
Yeah. That defense really good. They got Jordan Smith coming off the edge. They have a lot of kind of NFL prospect type guys. I know people like the wide receiver Austin Watkins. So yeah, even without Johnston, they'll be good.
I'm not too worried about their first 2 games. I mean, like we kind of touched on that, but Central Arkansas, a solid FCS team, putting up 45 on them, and they had some couple turnovers and it's kind of ugly, but they won. And then going to Miami, there's no
harm there.
I think there'll be but the loss with Johnston is concerning.
Yeah,
it's not like he was amazing,
now,
but
no, I mean, but last year, he had 9 yards per attempt, I think, through the air. Like you said, turnovers were an issue, so it's not like that production will be impossible to match. But it's a freshman; we don't know. He's only thrown 20 passes so far, so we don't know quite what to expect from Lucero.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our second contender in the West Division, Louisiana Tech. This team last year may have been in the conference title game if the quarterback Jamar Chase didn't have his issues.
Jamar Smith.
Oh, I said Chase.
Yeah.
I had to, sorry about that. Another guy from Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Jamar Smith. Yeah, if he didn't miss a couple games there, they very likely could have been in that conference title game.
Yeah,
probably would have been. But he did.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And he's gone now. So he was a 3-year starter and he was all conference quarterback. That's a huge loss. But there's still some talent there on that offense. They have a 1,000-yard rusher, Justin Henderson. He's back. 3 out of their top 4 pass catchers are. And they get a transfer from LSU, a guard, Donovan Campbell, who should slide right in there and start at guard. LSU had a pretty darn good offensive line last year, so it should be pretty good. So, I don't think they'll maybe be quite as good as last year on offense, but they're not going to just all of a sudden fall off the face of the planet here. So they'll still be solid. The defense, though, and they're solid last year, but they lose so much. They lose like 9 out of their top 12 tacklers. Very little experience everywhere, especially in the secondary. Probably take a big step back, but again, Louisiana Tech usually turns out pretty decent talent there. They get some talented guys coming in and out of that program, so they're going to be worse, but they're not going to fall off the face of the earth either. So they're good enough to compete there with UAB, and UAB is, I guess, not necessarily looking like gangbusters, and especially with their QB out. So it's a kind of the weaker side here of this conference. So I think they can compete there.
Okay. Let's get to those dark horses then. So it's UAB and Louisiana Tech as the contenders. Our dark horses are Southern Miss and North Texas. And Southern Miss, here's another one. They would have been definitely. Oh, sorry, I thought my internet went out for a second. That was
so did we.
But anyway,
well, I did.
Pros.
All right. Well, hopefully the audio was still good. Anyway, Southern Miss. So they lost by double digits at home against South Alabama in the first game of the season. Everyone was watching.
Yeah.
Their head coach, Jay Hobson, resigned. Not a great start to the season. That dropped them a notch for us. They also, shortly before the season, lost their 2 best players on the front 7. Defensive end Jaquez Turner and linebacker Rakeem Booth announced they're sitting out the season. Those are huge blows. And on offense, they lost their number 2 receiver, Jalen Adams. He announced he's sitting out as well. So kind of a lot of bad news in the last month for them.
Been horrible for them.
Yeah. They still have Tim Jones, great wide receiver. Jack Abraham back at quarterback is kind of the Alex Hornibrook. Yeah, Alex Hornibrook syndrome. Like, he's good. All his stats, you look at him, they're all good, except for the interceptions. So that's kind of like who were we just talking about? A little bit like Tyler Johnson, though maybe he's not quite as strong as these guys. But anyway, if he can, that's the thing. If he can limit the turnovers, then I think they're a contender. If not, then they're probably more like a dark horse.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, moving on to the next dark horse, North Texas. Man, the Mean Green were really disappointing last season. They had some high expectations with Mason Fine coming back at quarterback. They ended up going 4-8. Seth Luttrell, he was kind of banking on having a big year to propel him to one of those bigger, more marquee jobs out there.
K-State.
Yeah, obviously hindsight's 2020, but there's still some skill talent though. Running back Trey Siggers, receiver Jalen Darden are some names to watch. Keep an eye on. The defense, though, it needs to improve. They gave up over 30 points a game. I just think it's going to be a tall task for them to improve dramatically this year. They do have nose tackle Dion Noville. He had 13 tackles for loss, but the secondary, they have to break in 3 new starters, and that was already a below average unit last season. And especially within the conference, they didn't play too well. I wouldn't be surprised like overall if Luttrell turns it around, but I don't think they have the depth or talent this year to at least to win the division.
What was their first game? They like smoked some horrible FCS team, right? I forgot who it was.
Yeah, I remember their quarterback running wild on one play at least.
Yeah.
North Texas. All right, somebody look that up. But yeah,
was it Stephen F. Austin or no? No, I don't think so.
No.
But Trey, did you mention I kind of tuned out. I'm sorry, Trey. Did you mention the quarterback?
Houston Baptist.
Oh,
Houston. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Who almost
so they
beat
gave
Texas
up.
Tech.
It was like 50-30 or something like that.
57-31.
57-31. Yeah, that kind of looked bad at the time on the defense, giving up 480 passing yards to Bailey Zapp, but or I don't know how you pronounce his name. I've just read it in the box score, but
now Houston Baptist did the same thing.
Now it doesn't look quite as bad because Texas Tech gave up like 560 yards to them or something.
It did.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, North Texas, I saw some highlights of the quarterback, Jason Bean. I think I would expect him to be the starter going forward because his stats were pretty good in that Houston Baptist game.
Yeah. All right. Long shots. Numero uno long shot. We got the Rice Owls. Well, they were horrible last year to start. They started 0-9, but they won their last 3 games. So kind of a funny way to do that. And they did it with good defense really towards the end of the year there. Defense that has pretty much everybody back, like 10 starters, I think it was. Even their backups will be experienced. So, I mean,
Number
they just
one
got depth
in returning production on
defense. They got depth. They got some players that have proven that they're solid players on that side. So the defense should be pretty much improved and be pretty good. Offense, kind of like a different scenario there. They lose quite a bit from a group that already wasn't very good. Well, really, they were pretty pathetic as you can be. They were one of the worst offenses in the country. I was a little nice at first. I was like, wait a sec. They were god awful. So, but how much worse can they really be is the question.
Good question.
I mean, if you're already the worst, how can you? I guess you could still drop, but
technically
that'd be tough. So I don't know. I think they're going to be about the same on offense. Maybe they just with some new blood, they can surprise and be a little better. Maybe a different scheme, maybe some better coaching. Who knows what it is? I think they could improve a little bit. It's possible, and the defense will be good. So I could see them surprising some folks this year just because of that defense. They'll keep it close. They'll keep it interesting. They want to run the ball, shorten the game. I do know that. So they could surprise some folks.
Yeah, they brought in the grad transfer from TCU, Mike Collins at quarterback.
Yeah,
I know he's still in a battle, but maybe quarterback play will be better.
Couldn't be much better.
Okay, next dark horse, or sorry, long shot is UTSA, and they brought in a new head coach, Jeff Traylor. He was Arkansas's running backs coach. Real reason they hired him though is that was a great head coach in high school in Texas. Won 3 state championships, not straight, at the 4A level. They may have been straight. I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, they are 1-0. They've already played a game. They had that crazy double overtime win against Texas State last weekend.
That was nuts.
Yeah. I mean, Texas State is also one of the worst teams, so not exactly something to hang your hat on.
Beat SMU.
True. That was a closer score than indicated. Why are you holding up your finger, Ryan?
I thought you were about to say, well, SMU's really not that great, you know.
Oh boy.
Okay. We were going to have that argument again.
Everything circles back around.
Ryan
Yeah.
ended up arguing against himself there, but
So TC or UTSA we're talking about. The defense is going to be very bad. It was one of the worst in the country last year. They lose a good amount. Offensively is where there's hope. Sincere McCormick at running back as a sophomore. He already had in that first game, I think 197 rushing yards, something like that, nearly 200. The quarterback Frank Harris can run as well. Not super confident in the passing game, but baby steps. All right, let's get to the last long shot, Trey. It's the long shot of all long shots.
yes, long shot of all long shots is
You won one
UTEP,
game.
man. The Mike Price era was really good now when you think about it. Dana Dimmel has won 2 games in 2 years there. They only returned 7 starters. Doesn't seem like there's really too much hope to hang your hat on right now. They beat Stephen F. Austin, which that's not bad. Like that's semi-respectable. Then they just got drubbed to Texas 59-3. And I know they're not expected to compete with Texas, but it was pretty ugly. Texas could have named their number, but for their sake, I'm hoping that they show some life, some improvement, and really I hope that there's some player that just kind of steps up that can kind of help. They can kind of build around in the future because right now we have them here in the cellar of their division. Yeah. Unfortunately,
you guys feel like are a little too friendly. They're per SP Plus the worst offense and the worst defense. They're like by far the worst team out there. It's just not good. I don't know.
I mean, they gotta. Yeah, like if you stuck them in the FCS right now, they wouldn't be good either. So it's
it's definitely not.
It's a tough predicament they're in.
Yeah, they kind of deserve their own tier, but we've only got 3 tiers here, so
yeah, bad.
Sorry to Rice and UTSA. You're significantly better than UTEP probably. Okay. Should we move on to the East Division then of Conference USA? 3 teams at the top. Who we got, Ryan?
Marshall, Western Kentucky, and Florida Atlantic. Let's start it off with Marshall, the Thundering Herd. We've seen one game from them already. They looked very impressive, 59-0 versus Eastern Kentucky. Although Eastern Kentucky looks really bad, they got drubbed again the next week. But they were impressive. This week they play Appalachian State, so that one will be a real test, and we'll see what the Marshall really has. Isaiah Green, who was supposed to be the guy coming into this year for Marshall at quarterback, kind of had a little bit of sophomore slump last year, but he's gone, so he's not the guy. It's up to Grant Wells, who looked really good in the first one. So
really good.
So we'll see how it goes here against a good defense in Mountaineers, but good start. Their running back is back, Brendan Knox. He ran for almost 1,400 yards. He's a really good player. And 5 guys back with starting experience on the O-line. So that's going to be a good offense. The running game will be good. Grant Wells looks like he's probably going to be solid. So offense should be pretty darn good. Defense could be solid too. They did lose quite a bit. They lost like 7 guys. A couple of ends they have, though, are pretty darn good. Brought in a couple of JUCOs here, and a good transfer to try to fill in some losses that they've had. They usually turn out a pretty solid defense. So even though they do have some holes to fill, I think they'll be solid on that side of the ball too. So I would put them as the favorite on this side, and they should be pretty darn good. I like Marshall this year.
Yeah, Doc Holliday always has some solid squads.
Yeah. And that Grant Wells is the hope. Like if he's anywhere near as good as he looked in that first game, I know it was against FCS.
Yeah, because Isaiah Green really underperformed last year. So
yeah, Grant Wells. We'll see. It's just one game, but look good. Okay. So next we have Western Kentucky, and they're coming off of a great year one for Tyson Helton, going 9-4. And this past weekend, they didn't play particularly well against Louisville. They were, I think, dominated by more than the score would indicate. But Louisville's a good team, so I'm not going to downgrade them a ton, just a little bit from that performance. They should have a really good defense yet again. They returned 9 starters, including last year's Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year, D'Angelo Malone. He had 11.5 sacks, 21 tackles for loss. So he's a beast. The defense will be fine. Problem is the offense. It wasn't very good last year, and that was with Ty Storey having kind of a decent year at quarterback. Now they're 90th in returning production on that side of the ball. Their hope is that Tyrell Pigram can kind of inject some life into that offense, the transfer from Maryland. And he's fun to watch. He's a good runner. Hasn't yet proven in his career that he can lead an effective passing game. So, they're going to rely on their defense and just hope to get enough.
Defense and running game. That's going to be it. They're not going to pass.
Yeah, Gage Walker, a good running back.
Yeah, but Michael, those bookend defensive ends are pretty sweet. Like they're going to meet opposing quarterbacks, and they're going to have to live on that.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on to our next contender here. We got the Florida Atlantic, the Owls, and we've got Willie Taggart. He's back, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in this setting, this environment. I feel Florida Atlantic is kind of as good of a spot for him to get back on the wagon as any. We'll see if he can capitalize. He's inheriting a decent squad from Lane Kiffin. The offense, it was really slated to be really good this year. They led the league last season, but then they lost QB Chris Robinson in the offseason, which was a surprise to many, as he ended up just not being on the roster. But it looks like Indiana transfer Nick Tronti is going to be the guy. Even though they don't return a ton of starters on offense, there's still talent. It's not depleted from their title-winning teams with Lane Kiffin. Defense, they bring in a great defensive coordinator, Jim Leavitt. He's got a guy like Leighton McCarthy. He's kind of a hybrid linebacker DN. He's their best pass rusher. The challenge on D, though, is they lost on their line. They lost their top 7 tacklers. So they're gonna struggle there. They did hit the transfer portal. I can't say transfer portal.
Transfer portal. Yeah,
they hit the transfer portal hard. So there's no question that they're going to need some players to step up, as they do lose a lot. But FAU, they've won 2 of the last 3 conference titles. It's not like they don't have any talent there. So they should be in the mix.
Okay. Let's move on to the dark horses here in the Conference USA East Division.
Alrighty. Yes, we got Charlotte, Florida International, and Middle Tennessee here in the middle. So I'll start us off with Charlotte, who is probably deservingly on the first spot of this. They're I guess a dark horse, but they're pretty solid. They have a fight to be in a little higher. They're 5-3 in conference last year, and return a good amount of their production. They got their quarterback back, junior Chris Reynolds. He threw 22 touchdowns last year. Good dual threat.
Yeah, he was really good last year. It just kind of is coming out. So he obviously struggled in game 1 against App State. Well, apparently he was injured on the first play of the game. They're not saying what it was, but it's an upper body injury.
Oh, it's hockey now?
Yeah, I know. And he's going to be out against North Carolina. We don't know how long he'll be out, but that would be a huge loss.
Yeah, that's tough to hear. Yeah, I hadn't heard that yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big blow. Wow. Hopefully he's only out against UNC and can get back for.
I mean, he did play the rest of the game, so you got to think it's not
what I mean.
That
but
bad of
if
an
he's
injury,
sitting out versus UNC, hope he can come back and be ready for the rest of the conference. And that's when UNC. Good luck, but
yeah.
So just as long as he's back for conference is really when they need him. He's got dual threat ability. He's a good player. So their spread offense can really cause challenges for people. They were the best running team in the conference. They had the best run ground game. And the defense just loses a couple key pieces. Majority of the guys back there. So they already competed well in game 1 against App State. They were right there to the end, had a nice little punt kick return touchdown. So they were solid. They're right there. The offense could have done a little bit more, but I guess we see a little bit of reason why. I don't know. I think as long as Reynolds comes back healthy, I think they have a chance here to make the title.
Okay. Next dark horse, FIU. And they, of course, are coached by Butch Davis. He's gone to 3 straight bowl games, which is really impressive at Florida International. Defense should be fine. They've got 6 starters back. They had a nice grad transfer, or not grad transfer. I think he sat out last year. Tyson Maeva from Boise State. there's high hopes for him. Offense is their concern. It was bad last year, and they lose their quarterback James Morgan to the NFL. Quarterback competition has apparently 4 guys, but maybe the 2 favorites are Maryland transfer Max Bortenschlager, and then the more athletic option Kalen Wiggins. I personally would kind of
want to get your
have
quarterbacks from Maryland.
Yeah, I guess Pigram transferred now, and Bortenschlager. I would prefer to have the dual threat, all things being equal.
Oh yeah, Josh Jackson went to Maryland.
Yeah, he went to Maryland, exactly.
Didn't.
Anyway, one player to watch out for on offense is the former Georgia wide receiver JJ Holloman. I feel like they could use him at Georgia. He wasn't bad there. He was a role player, so
solid.
He could maybe do big things for FIU. So there's some good pieces if the quarterback situation works out, but overall I'm thinking below 500 in conference.
That's fair. All right. Well, the last dark horse we have here is middle. I was just waiting. Sorry for those just listening to the podcast. I was waiting for the graphic to appear.
Yeah.
Dramatic pause there. Middle Tennessee State, the Blue Raiders from Murfreesboro. They had a real rough start to the year, getting throttled 42-0 at Army. Oof. They just had no answers on offense or defense. And I mean, I guess I'll have to give them the benefit of the doubt on the defensive side, playing that Army option attack. But I was really disappointed with Rick Stockstill's offense. That's usually a strength of theirs. I really want to see Asher O'Hara bounce back. Going into the season, I was really excited to see him. He led the conference in offense last year, over 300 yards a game. His dual threat ability should really help them as they kind of go forward now into conference play. The defense, I mean, they obviously didn't show much at Army, of course, but they return only 3 starters, so it wasn't terribly surprising, I guess. I think, but overall, just as a team, I think O'Hara is going to turn the offense back around, and they're going to be a team that's going to try and outscore people in the conference.
Okay. Long shots. There are no long shots. It would have been Old Dominion, but they are the one team in the conference that has opted out. They're not playing this season because of COVID. So let's move on to the conference championship. So who was your pick, Trey?
So I went with UAB, and really my rationale is primarily because I'm most confident them winning their division. That other division is just so wide open in my eyes. I would not be surprised if I could have made a case for a lot of teams in that East Division, and almost any winner on that side wouldn't surprise me. And overall, even though UAB loses Johnston, they've got so much returning talent, production on defense. I'm not discouraged by the first couple games. I still got UAB, and I have them beating Marshall on the other side. I like Marshall this year.
Okay, yeah, I'm making the same picks. UAB over Marshall. Marshall, I'm picking them just because I'm optimistic. I guess I'm buying in after one game against an FCS team, but he played really well, and just combined with Brendan Knox, the running back, behind a very good offensive line, he's going to be put in a good position to succeed. And the defense actually right now in SP Plus is only slightly behind Western Kentucky, so that's why I'm picking them over WKU. And also they avoid UAB, whereas Western Kentucky does not. And then in the West, I think UAB's the pick. Very experienced team, great defense, enough skill talent on offense to get by. But the injury to Tyler Johnston does have me thinking twice for sure.
Yeah, but there's they're still the class on that side, it seems like. So yeah, I'm going with UAB also. I'm going with Western Kentucky though, coming from the other side. I trust the defense a little bit more. I do like Marshall. It's neck and neck really with those two teams for me. But I just trust the defense on Western Kentucky a little bit more. So, but then I have UAB taking down Western Kentucky for the championship.
Okay. So last question we have about Conference USA before we move on to the Sun Belt. Does anyone, obviously the AAC, the winner of that has a great chance to be the New Year's Six participant. Does anyone from Conference USA have a chance to get that over the AAC?
I wish, even with less teams involved in football this year, I just don't see a path for anyone. I mean, if UAB would have beat Miami, maybe they would have had a chance, because then they could have run the table in conference. But there's just not enough marquee games for these Conference USA teams to play, and I just don't think the strength of the conference overall is enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty unlikely. For that reason, UAB losing to Miami and Western Kentucky losing to Louisville. Those two teams kind of big chances to make a statement against a Power 5 team, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, those were the teams that really had the chance to do it if they could have pulled those off. I'll say very unlikely, but Marshall still has a shot. I mean, if they go undefeated, they play App State this week. So, if they can beat them and then App State goes and does what they're usually do in the Sun Belt and win it, then they would have a somewhat strong case against, like, hey, we are undefeated. We beat probably a top 25-ish App State, in that scenario. So I don't think they'd get it. I think a one-loss AAC team might be more attractive, but it's possible.
Yeah, they'll need chaos. They would need like a 2-loss AAC champ, in which case undefeated Marshall is probably getting in over a 2-loss AAC.
Sure.
Okay. Sun Belt. Let's
Fun
move
Belt.
on to the Fun Belt. Especially this year looks pretty strong. We'll start with the West Division. We only have one contender there. It's Louisiana, the Ragin Cajuns, coached by Billy Napier. He's done an incredible job in his first 2 seasons there. Recruiting has been like the best in Sun Belt history. On the field, they won 11 games last year, so he's done a great job there as well. And now this season, they get off to an amazing start with a win on the road against Iowa State, what is supposed to be a very good Iowa State team. So that's huge. The offense should be excellent again. Levi Lewis back at quarterback. He had 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year. The running game is very good. Maybe the best group of running backs in the conference, one of the best in the country, with Elijah Mitchell and Trey Regis. 5 players with at least 1 full season of starting experience on that offensive line. It should be good. And the defense getting better year after year. And if the game against Iowa State is any indication, they've taken another step this year.
Very big step. I mean, they pretty much
shut down Brock Purdy.
Yeah, they really did. That was impressive. And they apparently have good special teams. They had two returns for touchdowns. Yeah. So the punt returning was for real, though. Those guys are, they have some playmakers. I don't think any of us are shocked, obviously, that they went in and beat Iowa State, because we know that Louisiana Lafayette's a good team.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Here we go. All right. The Ragin Cajuns. It's Louisiana.
You know what's funny is because when you sent your picks in to Sarah, because she makes all these graphics and she does a great job on those. So
she does.
Say thank you to Sarah on Twitter. But you sent her Lafayette. You said I'm picking Lafayette, in the West Division. Spoiler alert. But
didn't I send it to you?
Well, you sent it to me and I just forwarded it to her. I didn't even look at it. And so
if I knew I was just sending it
making
to
the
her,
graphics. She's like, wait, Lafayette University? No.
See?
I thought I was sending it to you. If I knew it was just only going to her and you weren't going to look at it, okay, I would have said Louisiana in there. But just I refuse. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, no, they're amazing. I really didn't quite realize. I really liked them last year. I didn't realize how good that offense was a season ago. They were averaging almost 500 yards a game. It's astounding how the numbers they put up.
They kind of were a little shaky in the first game, but Iowa State's good D, but
they weren't running the ball as well as they did last year.
But it's
Iowa
tough
State
defense.
And the defense returns like its top 5 leading tacklers from a year ago. Like, there is so much to like with this Ragin' Cajun team. And yeah, Ryan, you said they got the best special teams in the country up to this point.
I know, they're crazy.
That was a
lot of kick returns and punt returns.
Hey guys, special teams. You know what they say?
1/3 of the game, baby.
One third of the game.
That's right, especially here. But yeah, I'm in on the Ragin' Cajuns.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about a dark horse? This is a very good dark horse, huh?
Arkansas State. That is a very good dark horse for the Sun Belt. They're kind of a dark horse in the Big 12. So yeah, we've already got a good look at them, like very good look. They've played 2 good teams so far. They had some somewhat pretty good competitive game at Memphis. They hung in there pretty well. And then they obviously won at Kansas State on last week. So They have two good quarterbacks. Lane Hatcher, you guys are on the Lane train. I'm kind of impartial on that. I like Logan Bonner too. They're both good. So I kind of wish I just pick one. Feel like it can offset their rhythm a little bit, but either way, their offense is good no matter what they do. So I guess it works.
Jonathan Adams at receiver is a beast.
Yeah, he's an animal.
Hatcher's last throw to win the game against K-State was so impressive.
I don't know how he was getting
hit. It was contested.
It was a far throw. It was. It was like, how did that just look like it was like a 10-yard throw for him, but it was like 30. So that was, and then Adams just makes it look easy. So yeah, they're good, man. The only question, obviously, for them, the difference why they're a dark horse is the defense. They were really bad last year, and what little talent they did have coming back, they had a couple of grad transfers. One went to Baylor, and then one went to Arkansas. I think one defensive lineman, one's corner. So those were some huge losses for them. So that group's not going to be that great. I mean, they showed okay at Memphis and at K-State, but they're not, like on Louisiana. I'll say Louisiana for you. Louisiana's level. So yeah, I mean, they're a good squad. They have a good offense. Defense can hang in there. Then, if they could maybe sneak up on the Ragin Cajuns and knock them out, give them a run for their money.
It's also hard not to pull for Blake Anderson, given what he's gone through.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some of the long shots here, and I'll lead us off with South Alabama. Through 2 games, this is clearly a much improved team from a season ago. They beat Southern Miss on the road, as we touched on earlier, as a big dog, and then they nearly beat Tulane last weekend as an underdog. Desmond Trotter, he's the dual threat quarterback. He's put up good numbers so far. They also use Chance Lovertich. He's more the pure passer. I'm encouraged by what I've seen out of the Jags, considering they've only won 9 games combined in the past 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good start. I'm hoping Desmond Trotter apparently was. You brought up bringing in the backup Chance Lovertich. Trotter was, I guess, in and out of that game with injury, so we'll see if that is an issue going forward. But didn't seem to affect the offense too much last week. Okay, we've got 2 more. So our second to last long shot, very similar logo to South Alabama. It's Texas State, and they were 3-9 last year, and they're 118th in returning production. So expectations very low coming into the year. Are 0-2. But it kind of looked better than maybe you might think. 7-point loss to SMU. I think it was a misleading score, but still, that's a positive for Texas State. And then overtime loss to UTSA. It's a heartbreaker, but at least they were competitive.
They missed an extra point. They missed an extra point.
We're going to break down that game tomorrow on our week 2 recap podcast. But that's a heartbreaker. I still think though that they're, despite looking, I guess you could say good these first 2 games, they're one of the worst teams playing in college football this year. But there's hope to be taking a step forward under Jake Spavital. Brady McBride looked competent against SMU.
Competent. What? He looked competent.
I mean, that's what I would say. His stats weren't good, but to my eye test, I felt like he looked good. So I just wanted to say competent. He was out for COVID reasons against Texas State. Last year's starter, Tyler Vitt, got the start and played well. So hopefully they're taking a step forward.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's move on to our last team here. This is the Louisiana Warhawks.
What?
Just kidding. Louisiana Monroe. See, that's why it's still Louisiana Lafayette. They can't just Louisiana. Why isn't this? This is
they claimed it.
It's honestly a genius branding move for Louisiana. How had no one else tried to do that first? They beat Monroe to the punch.
Like Southwest Missouri State taking Missouri State.
Yeah. Southwest Missouri State sounds garbage, but Missouri State, it's like, oh, okay,
that's legit.
Are they FBS? Maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. University of Louisiana Monroe Warhawks here. They had one of the worst defenses in the country last year, so I do have a good amount of guys coming back, but so I guess they should improve, but they maybe need some new blood. They're still going to be really bad. Their offense loses their starting quarterback, who was pretty actually solid for them, Caleb Evans. He was a big reason why they ended up winning 5 games last year. They do have a good running back coming back, Josh Johnson, not the Torero. He ran for nearly 1,300 yards last year, but without a good QB and a lack of playmakers on the outside, I think that offense will take a step back. We saw in week 1 how they did not look very good. I mean, Army, wow, looking good through 2 games. Army beat them 37-7. So yeah, it's just them, and it seems like those 2 teams, Texas State and Louisiana Monroe, are clearly the bottom of this division.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go over to the East Division of the Sun Belt, and again at the top we have a clear number 1.
True. It's a little competitive in this division, but yeah, App State. They're the kings of the.
Who's the top?
They're the kings of the Sun Belt. I mean, the biggest challenge for the Mountaineers this year is breaking in their 3rd head coach in 3 years, but they still have Zach Thomas returning at quarterback. He's another one of those guys that feel like he's been there a long time. He's really efficient. Last year, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Also ran for 7 scores. They do lose running back Darrington Evans, who was a stud, but they got Marcus Williams coming back. He was productive last year when he played. I'm really also not concerned with the running game as much because they return 4 starters from the offensive line. That line was 13th in the nation in sacks allowed. They created holes for a running game that generated over 200 yards a game. I think almost 230. So I'm not too concerned with the offense. The defense, a little different story. They were the number 1 D in the conference a season ago, but they lose a lot of production. They're going to need to rely on the talent that they've kind of accumulated by being the top dog in the conference over the last couple of years. But at this point, it's really unproven. The best player on defense is a good prospect, though. Sean Jolly, he was first team all-conference corner. He had 5 picks last year. So they should be able to lock down some of the receivers that they face. But we know that, App State, they're going to be relevant each and every year. And that seems to be, again, the case this year.
I mean, they're definitely relevant. They're to be surprised if they didn't win this division. The defense was a concern, no doubt, coming into this year. We knew the offense would be good, but I was impressed with what they did against Charlotte. And for the first week, they gave up only 20 points, but remember the touchdown came on a special team. So they were pretty darn good. So I'm encouraged by what I saw from that side. And I mean, it'd be shocking if it's not Louisiana of Lafayette versus App State.
Yeah, that's definitely I would make that a, what do you call it? Odds-on favorite for the.
Yeah, I mean, it's
for the matchup in the
2 best teams by far.
And yeah, App State, they've won either alone as the champion or shared the Sun Belt Championship for 4 straight years. So they are the team to beat. One player that they are missing is Corey Sutton, their best receiver. Announced he's sitting out the season, so that's another big loss. But yeah, they're so solid all the way around. They're the big favorite to win the East here. Okay, so we're gonna move to our next group here, and it's not dark horses. I think there really isn't a clear dark horse in this division. It's kind of just 4 long shots, and we say long shots. I mean, there's some solid teams in this group.
Yeah.
Someone's going to rise up to be the dark horse. We're just not quite sure who that is yet. But it's Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, Troy, and Georgia State. And they could really end up in any order, I think. But we'll go with Georgia Southern here first. So Chad Lunsford has done a really good job as head coach there. They've made 2 straight bowl games. Not off to a good start on the field, but because they just beat FCS.
They had like 30 guys out.
Yeah, exactly. They won by a point against Campbell from the
Any
FCS.
win was
They
fine.
had 33 players missing, so you can't read anything into that score. They should be pretty good once they get all their players back from quarantine. Shai Wertz is back at quarterback, very good runner in that option offense. They get some guys back from injury on the offensive line, so they should have an experienced O-line. The running backs, Wesley Kennedy and J.D. King, the former Oklahoma State transfer, very good. So that running game is obviously what gets them going. And on defense, one of the best front sevens in the conference. So just kind of a solid all-around team, unless all these guys being in quarantine has really affected their preparation for the season. Maybe that's a factor, but if it isn't, then
should be a touch of that everywhere, maybe you would think. But
yeah. So
yeah, no, that's a lot.
I like Georgia Southern. They're solid.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's move on to the next one here. Our podcast favorite, Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. Looking at game one here, it looks like Coastal may have found their new quarterback, Grayson McCall, the freshman. We did not quite anticipate that. They had a couple other guys coming back that played last year, but good news for the Chants that somebody else stepped up and took the job. He was solid against Kansas. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but he was pretty solid there. Made quite a few nice plays, had some good runs. But for a freshman, first game on the road, he looked good. CJ Marable is back at running back. That guy's a really good player. Versatile, catches out of the backfield. Good running back. They also have a good looking tight end I was impressed with in the first game, Isaiah Likely. He's going to be a threat in that passing game. Kind of seems like a nice safety net for McCall. And they got 4 starters back on the line. So that should be an improved group on the offense. Definitely. 38 points in game one. Nothing wrong with that. Defense should also be better. They had a lot of injuries last year. They got some hit by the injury bug. So with some of those guys coming back, the front seven has some good amount of experience. Secondary, not so much, but secondary was already the weak point on that defense last year. So any improvement from them, I think would just help. But overall, it's like this team was 5-7 last year. If this were a normal year, I think they'd have a legit bowl hope. I think they could make a bowl game. So I don't see why not. Why this team couldn't win that second spot. They ain't gonna win it, but they could be in that second spot behind.
Who knows?
Who knows? But they'll be finished right behind App State.
Yeah,
but I like them. They're getting better.
Yeah, and the reason they're a podcast favorite, Coastal Carolina, is that for the patrons, we decided to choose one kind of G5 team to kind of be our second favorite team this year, or if you have a Pac-12 fan, and we'll see what happens there. Your first favorite team, because you don't have a team playing this year. So we chose Coastal Carolina, and after one game, holy crap, that's looking like a good choice. They looked like just the athletes they have are so good. They just looked really impressive. Teron Jackson at defensive end is a beast. He looks like he could be a Power 5 player easily. They look good.
I like awesome. It's cool school, man. Cool school, right? I like their colors. Their uniforms are sweet.
Yeah.
The Chants. All right. So moving on to our next long shot, that would be Troy. So they have to replace their highly productive quarterback, Caleb Barker. It's going to be a tall task for Coach Chip Lindsey. The good thing, though, is that the skill position talent there, it's there to help. Probably the conference's best receiving core. They returned running back BJ Smith from injury. He's been productive in the past. On the defensive side, they have some holes it needs to fill in order to improve. But they have a great piece to build around. There's a potential All-American candidate that they have. Linebacker Carlton Marshall. He had 126 tackles, 18.5 for loss last year. Pretty astounding numbers. So if a quarterback can emerge for Troy, they could work its way up in the division. But obviously, like we've said, they're not going to win it.
Okay. Last long shot we have here, and again, these 4 long shots, I feel like you could mix up in any order. It's Georgia State, and they're coming off a 7-6 season that included a win at Tennessee, of course, in the first game that everyone remembers. And they returned 17 starters, so you think that they would be solid. The problem is the starters they lost include the quarterback Dan Ellington, who was very good, and the Sun Belt's most productive running back Trey Barnett. So those are 2 huge losses on offense. We'll see what happens. They're going to go to a redshirt freshman at quarterback, Quad Brown. If he's good, they could easily end up finishing at the top of the long shots. If not, then they're probably well placed here and last.
Yep, they should be pretty good. I kind of like the Panthers.
Yeah, a lot of experience. Defense should get a lot better. There's most everybody coming back.
Yep.
Championship picks for the Sun Belts. I'll go first here. I've got the Ragin' Cajuns, Louisiana over App State. Of course, we're all going to have those two teams in the championship game. I just think it's time. Napier has replenished the talent there. Really good young talent on the team. They've got continuity at head coach. Defense maybe appears to have taken another step forward. If what they did to Brock Purdy is any indication, it'll be a great game if and when it happens. But I'll take Louisiana.
Yeah, and I hope this is the game. I'm already kind of looking forward to it. I've got App State over Louisiana. I'm just going with the Kings of the Conference until they're dethroned. I like Zach Thomas. I really trust him in the big moments. Last year, App State beat Louisiana twice, once on the road. So I'm encouraged by that. And I mean, I'll admit Louisiana's definitely narrowed the gap a lot from last season, and obviously would not be surprised if they pulled it out. But I'm going to take App State this year.
Yeah, it's obviously neck and neck. But the last game from the Ragin' Cajuns winning at Iowa State, I guess, just kind of maybe sealed the deal for me on why I ended up going with the Ragin' Cajuns over App State. Not that, App State's couldn't have done the same, but this year right now, I that swayed me. So it's right there. It's neck and neck.
Okay. Final question then of the podcast is, does any G5 team have a chance to make the playoff this year? I guess G3 is whatever you want to call it this year.
Well, you kind of missed the last one about that. And New Year's 6 spot. Does any of these teams make a New Year's 6? Sunbelt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, the Sunbelt teams.
Sunbelt, yeah. Oh, you're right. I skipped that question. That's good. Okay, so do you think anyone from Sunbelt has a chance? New Year's 6?
I do. I think either of these teams, if they go unbeaten, they would have a better case than any of those Conference USA teams would. So, I mean, they would definitely need they couldn't get in over an undefeated AAC team, but if one of these teams was undefeated, a one-loss AAC versus an undefeated App State or Louisiana would be a really tough call. I think
that would be tough. I think Louisiana might have a better chance because they've got that. If Iowa State goes on to have a really good season, that's a legit win. So I think I would lean towards them against a one-loss AAC champ if I had to predict right now.
Sure.
App State, it's a little closer. I think that would be maybe the AAC champ.
They need Marshall to
over them.
Have a good year too.
Yeah.
App State unfortunately just doesn't have that marquee non-conference game. But if they take care of business and look really impressive doing it, and Louisiana stays unbeaten, and then they get to beat an unbeaten Louisiana team,
like they're already
they have some cachet. So, but they either of these teams. I agree with you guys. Louisiana probably has the leg up, of course, with that big win. But either of these teams would need a little help and have some of those AAC teams beat each other up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so better chance than those two teams. Better chance than anyone from Conference USA.
No doubt.
Okay, all right. Well, now let's set our sights a little higher than that New Year's 6 slot. So how about the playoff? Any team in the AAC, Conference USA, or Sun Belt have a chance at the playoff?
Nah. It's too much. It's too hard. We've already seen it. I guess 3 years ago now, UCF going undefeated, and they weren't really a true contender there. They weren't really that close to making it. So short season, not going to have. I mean, Louisiana, that's the team that has a chance with the big win at Iowa State. They need them to be undefeated, but even still, that's the only thing to hang their hat on. They're not going to get in over, 11-1 or I guess 9-1 SEC team. There's just no way.
Yeah, I don't think the Sun Belt teams, I wouldn't give much of a chance just because even though Sun Belt had some success against the Big 12, overall the schedule is not going to be respected that much, I think, by the committee. But the AAC, because it's getting a lot of respect over what they've done the last couple of years. And those 4 teams at the top, SMU, Memphis, Cincinnati, UCF.
We're tossing in SMU in the top now, are we?
Well, because perception, the committee. All right. Wow. Anyway, those 4 teams are good. And so if one of those, let's say it's UCF, goes undefeated, they get a win at Georgia Tech, blowout win. They need Georgia Tech to be good. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to make the case.
None of those teams face a top team.
That is the problem. The problem. I don't see any AAC team that has an elite Power 5 team on the schedule, so that hurts. No. I think it's a better chance this year than other years just because There's no Pac-12 in the mix. We'll see about the Big Ten. That would hurt, but let's just say there's no Big Ten in the mix, even though that might change.
Pac-12 doesn't
soon.
make the playoff anyways.
Well, but helps the odds. Sometimes they do.
I know.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I long-winded answer. I think it's a very, very low chance.
Yeah, they would need some chaos amongst those power conference teams to beat each other. Like you just have the conference champs and then have kind of their next best team have a couple losses just to kind of try and get them out of the mix and then have that unbeaten team. And I was looking at the non-conference schedules for these top dogs in the AAC. Michael, you said UCF has Georgia Tech. It's okay, but it's not moving the needle. And Cincinnati's best win would most likely be Army out of conference. Again, good, but that's not. It's just kind of unfortunate they didn't get to play like one top dog that would kind of boost them over the top. But hey, you never know if one of these teams just breaks apart and they look
That's
really
what they
good.
need.
If they look really good doing it. They also need the top teams in the AAC not to have like bad losses so that they're all as highly ranked as possible throughout the year so that they get those quality wins within conference. But it's a long shot, but maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a multi-year process for a G5 team to make it. You got to go like back-to-back years undefeated and then maybe have a chance. You can't just do it in 1 year.
Right. And I think it's this multi-year process for the AAC just gaining more and more respect. That Power 6 kind of argument is resonating with some people, especially with the way the ACC has been struggling. But anyway, all right. Well, thanks for listening to the College Football Bros podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube. If you're not subscribed, either in your podcast app or on YouTube, encourage you to do that. It helps us out to get more subscribers on both, helps more people find the podcast. Also helps if you leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts. If you give us a thumbs up on YouTube, leave us a comment, tell us what you think. Really appreciate all your support. We're trying to grow here. We don't have ESPN or any backing behind us, but
we have MyBookie right now.
We got MyBookie behind us. That's right. Promo code CF Bros. That helps us out as well if you're interested in betting. So we will be back tomorrow with we're going to recap week 2 briefly, and we will make our picks for week 3. We'll talk to you then.
You've been listening to the College Football Bros. If you have any questions for the next podcast, email them to collegefootballbros@gmail.com. To keep up with the brothers on social media, like them on Facebook at College Football Bros, follow them on Instagram at College Football Bros, and for their commentary on Saturdays, follow them on Twitter at CFB Bros. Thanks for listening.